you're going to take some more notes in our ELA notebook, you don't have to write anything in the table of contents because we already wrote it in the table of contents on Monday when we started. And on Monday, we went over comparing and contrasting characters, we did a setting, and we did events. And that was all from our book, Frindle. Now, today, after we did that, we looked more in detail about comparing and contrasting characters. We talked about character traits, and we did some work with that. So now that we're done with comparing characters, all that was done Monday, we're going to look at comparing and contrasting the setting. So you need to find this page in your notes, in your paperclip notes, and make sure you put it on page 14 and label it page 14. So even though we did an example of comparing the setting in Frindle to our distance learning setting, you still want to glue this down, and we're going to do some practice with it. So the setting is where the story takes place, where and when the story takes place. And stories sometimes have different settings, so that's why you can compare and contrast them. It says ways to compare and contrast settings would be the physical environment, the actions or activities that occur at that specific setting, the atmosphere or mood, the purposes in the setting, how the characters respond or react in different settings. So now that there's nothing for us to do on this page, it just needs to be glued down. Now if we look on page 15, this is the page that you want to glue down onto page 15, and then of course write page 15 at the bottom of the page, like so. So at this point, I want you to pause the video. I want you to read the story to yourself, describe the setting, and say how the setting changes. After you've done that, you can unpause the video. So hopefully you've done this on your own now, and we're going to go over the correct answer. I highlighted as I read key things that told me about the setting. So the setting of the story starts out on a warm, clear day at the lake. While the setting stays at the lake, the environment changes to a cloudy, that says cloud, but it should say cloudy, cool, windy afternoon, then to rain. Finally, the water calms and the sun comes back out after the storm. So that's how the setting changed. Do you have to have the exact same thing as mine? No. But you should have that it was, clear, and then it started storming, and then it was clear again. You need to describe how the setting changes. All right, on page 15, we're going to look at comparing settings. So again, you're going to glue this down onto page 16, glue this down on page 16. You're going to pause the video, read the story, and compare and contrast the two brothers' bedrooms, which is the two settings in the story. Alright, so you should have done this on your own. Now we're going to talk about the correct answer. So you had to compare and contrast. So you had to tell how they were alike and different. So both boys have carpet in their rooms, and their room balanced their personalities. That's how they're the same. That's why I use the word both. The main character's room is messy, has dirty dishes in it, has no cleaning supplies out. He also has a desk, and you cannot see his carpet. In contrast, because I'm telling how the other room is different, in contrast, Mitch's room is clean and neat. He has cleaning supplies out. He sees the carpet, and he has a shelf, not a desk. Now, yours doesn't have to be the exact same as mine, but you do need to tell how they were the same and how they were different. If you need time, you can pause the video to correct your answer. Now, if we look on page 17, you want to glue this on page 17 and make sure you write page 17 wherever you're keeping up with your numbers. This is about comparing and contrasting the plots, or the plot elements or the events. These are the things that happen in the story, and there's always more than one in the story. So different plot elements to compare and contrast would be the problem or the challenge, the causes of the problem, the impacts or effects of the problems, the characters' attempted or failed successful solutions. So they could attempt to a solution and be successful, or they could fail at attempting to correct the solution. And finally, specific events in the story, or maybe stories if you're comparing more than one story together. Now if we turn to page 18, you're going to glue down comparing problems and write page 18 on it. You will want to pause the video right now and read this on your own. Describe the problem and tell me how James and the weightlifter approached the problem differently. Hopefully you have already done this. Once again, I use my highlighter to highlight important things in the story to help me remember. So this problem is James is hungry. He doesn't have his lunch. When he tries to get a protein bar, it snags in the machine. You might have written a little bit more there. Or you might have written that he also got money from his friends, which was true. You might have written that he got money from his friends down here when we talk about how they approached the problem. Because his first problem was he forgot his money and everything on the bus. So he did originally start to solve that problem by asking everybody for spare change, but then he had another problem because after he gets enough money, he still can't get the protein bar. So then, how does he approach that? Well, he just sits there and pouts. He's just like, oh, defeated, done. Well, the weightlifter comes by, and he solves the problem by smacking the machine. He's happy, and he's like, oh, this happens all the time. Smack, 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 get your protein bar.
Decision finished. It's now time to prepare for dismissal.
So he doesn't feel defeated by the situation. He solves the problem by being proactive. Last page is page 19. You need to glue this onto page 19 and write page 19 wherever you're keeping up with the numbers. Then pause the video and answer the questions where you describe the boy's problem and compare and contrast how each boy responds to the problem. Once you're done, you can unpause the video. So hopefully you have answered this problem now. Describe the boy's problem. Well, the boys' problem is they have to stuff and lick envelopes for their mom, but the licking tastes gross. Compare and contrast how each boy responded to the problem. John just grinned and bared it. He just suffered through it and did the task. In contrast, Tony found a creative way to complete the task, and he was happy at the end. At the end, when they went to get ice cream, John was like, oh, here, you have mine. And Tony's like, sure, no big deal. I'll have 2 ice creams. So that's how they differed in their approaches to responding to the problem. How they were the same, I used the word both. Both boys still got the job done. They just didn't do it in the same way, and they didn't feel the same in the end. So we will use these notes to do our work next week because we will be working on comparing and contrasting settings and problems and events and stories.